At the beginning of our tale, we meet Wanchu, a young girl whose life is turned upside down after the sudden death of her parents. Cast out by her cruel aunt, she finds herself lying helpless in the rain, her world crumbling around her. Just as despair takes hold, a man approaches her, a figure of power and mystery. He is Mu Qinghuai, the third master of the influential Mu family. Offering his hand, he says, "I'll give you a home." That night, while Wanchu sleeps under his roof for the first time, his loyal servant reveals the truth. Wanchu had once saved Qinghuai's life when he was injured, and her parents' tragic car accident left their fortune in the hands of deceitful relatives. From that moment, Wanchu begins her new life in his household. Determined to regain control over her life, Wanchu decides to learn to shoot, symbolizing her inner strength. When she asks Qinghuai for help, he warns her of the difficulty, showing scars from his own battles. Shooting isn't easy, he says. But her resolve doesn't waver, and soon she hits her first target, exclaiming proudly, "I shot it." Years later, Wanchu has grown into a confident young woman, but her heart still flutters for the third master. When he returns after weeks away, she eagerly prepares a feast and waits for him, only to find him drunk late at night. Rushing to his side, she tries to care for him, but Qinghuai, in his drunken state, kisses her, leaving her confused and flustered. The next morning, as she packs her things to escape her embarrassment, Qinghuai storms in, demanding answers about a mysterious mark on her neck. Misunderstanding her silence, he imposes strict rules to keep her under his watch, igniting a storm of emotions between them. Mu Qinghuai's stern warning leaves Wanchu upset, and she refuses to eat, her frustration growing with each passing moment. Determined to escape the mansion, she devises a plan, but as she approaches the window, she spots a guard stationed outside, foiling her attempt. Angrily, she mutters, "If you're so mad, Qinghuai, why don't you cut off your own roots?" In a burst of defiance, she hurls a vase out the window, only for Aunt Chen to rush in and scold her, saying it was the third master's favorite vase. Seizing the distraction, Wanchu slips out of her room and goes on a rampage. She hacks into Qinghuai's company database, causing significant financial losses. The chaos triggers a frantic search by the staff, but when Qinghuai learns of her actions, he rushes to confront her. Wanchu, tied up by the servants, braces herself for harsh punishment. Even Qinghuai's assistant expects the third master's wrath, but when Qinghuai arrives, he surprises everyone. He unties Wanchu and gently says, "Your biggest mistake was letting yourself get hurt. Next time, just tell my people to do it for you." Shocked, Wanchu stares as he casually adds, "Do you want to burn more villas?" Confused, Wanchu asks why he isn't angry. Qinghuai simply replies, "Because nothing is more important than you." He insists she comes downstairs to eat, carrying her in his arms when she stumbles. At the dining table, he announces that the servants' year-end bonuses are docked for scaring Choo-Choo, his new nickname for Wanchu. Later, as they chat, Wanchu jokes that it's normal for a 20-year-old like her to have a boyfriend. Qinghuai pulls her chair closer, asking sternly, "Do you want to date now?" Though he frames it as a casual question. His warning is clear: if you date, I'll break his legs. Startled, Wanchu wonders why Qinghuai is acting so strange. That night, when Wanchu goes to get water, Qinghuai scolds her for walking barefoot and dries her wet hair, leaving her flustered by his care. The next morning, she finds him asleep at his desk and mischievously doodles on his face. When he wakes, instead of getting angry, Qinghuai praises her drawings, leaving even his assistant stunned by his doting behavior. The next day at school, Wanchu encounters Senior Su, who persistently tries to woo her with a bouquet. Annoyed, she rejects him again, saying, "I don't like flowers." Thankfully, her friend Jiangman arrives just in time to save her from the uncomfortable situation. Together, they head to class, only to find their classmates whispering and staring at Wanchu. Suspicious, she hears someone accuse her of cheating on the computer science exam. Wanchu quickly discovers that a classmate, Dong Siyu, is behind the false accusations, jealous that Senior Shu favors Wanchu over her. When Dong Siyu enters the class, she mockingly calls Wanchu a cheater. Unbothered, Wanchu calmly responds, "Is it because Senior Shu rejected you that you're taking your anger out on me?" Furious, Dong Siyu threatens, "Let's see if you're still smiling when you're expelled." Just then, Professor Wang enters and praises Wanchu for helping trace a hacker who could have caused significant data loss. He dismisses Dong Siyu's claims, stating, "Why would someone like Wanchu cheat on a simple exam? It's absurd." Embarrassed, Dong Siyu's confidence wavers as Wanchu reveals she has evidence of Dong Siyu's fake social media account slandering her. Faced with exposure, Dong Siyu apologizes and storms out. Later, Dong Siyu conspires with her aunt, who is attending a prestigious ball hosted by Mu Qinghuai. Meanwhile, Jiangman convinces Wanchu to attend the event secretly. As they arrive, Jiangman is nervous, but Wanchu remains calm until she realizes that Qinghuai is the host of the party. Nervously, she hides behind Jiangman. At the party, Dong Siyu's aunt tries to charm Qinghuai, but he coldly dismisses her, saying, "I already have a girlfriend hidden from view." Wanchu wonders who this mysterious girlfriend could be. Then, Qinghuai orders his guards throw her out. "I hate women who wear red." Startled, Wanchu can't help but wonder what Qinghuai is thinking. As Dong Siyu sees an opportunity to humiliate Wanchu, she points toward her and says, "There's another girl in red. She should be thrown out too." Qinghuai, Noticing Wanchu hiding behind Jiangman, slowly walks toward her. Jiangman tries to defend her friend, but King Huai gently orders, "Step aside." When he finally sees Wanchu's face, his expression softens. "Why didn't you tell me you were here?" King Huai asks, his tone firm but curious. Wanchu, flustered, explains, "Jiangman begged me to come. I didn't want to hurt her feelings by saying no then." With an adorable pout, she adds, "I was wrong. Please don't be mad." Third Master. King Huai sighs and allows her to stay, surprising everyone, especially Dong Siyu. Feeling ignored and desperate, Dong Siyu storms toward Wanchu and shatters an expensive decorative piece. She points at Wanchu and accuses her. She broke it on purpose. She should compensate for it before Wanchu can respond. King Huai steps forward. "What happened here?" he asks coldly. Dong Siyu eagerly repeats her accusation, but King Huai's expression darkens. Without hesitation, King Huai orders his guards, "Break every decoration piece in this ballroom." The room fills with gasps as the guards destroy the lavish ornaments. Turning back to Dong Siyu, King Huai says, "Now you owe Yi Wanchu 830 million. Compensate her." Stunned, Dong Siyu protests, "Your guards broke them." "Why blame me?" King Huai smirks. "You taught them by your actions. You broke one and blamed Wanchu. Now, everything here belongs to her, and she can do whatever she likes." Embarrassed and defeated, Dong Siyu's father arrives and pleads for forgiveness. King Huai coldly orders Dong Siyu to apologize. At first she refuses, but after her father slaps her, she begrudgingly says, "I'm sorry." As the party winds down, King Huai approaches Wanchu. Gently draping his coat over her shoulders, he says, "It's cold. Wear this." Not stopping there, he kneels to remove her high heels and replaces them with more comfortable shoes. Jiangman, watching in awe, whispers, "Your third master really dotes on you." Wanchu, though flustered, feels her heart flutter as King Huai's protective actions speak louder than any words ever could. On their way home from the party, King Huai breaks the silence by asking, "Do you like that senior Shu?" Wanchu quickly shakes her head and says, "No, not at all." King Huai, not satisfied, comments, "He's not worthy of you anyway." Wanchu, startled, blurts out, "Then what kind of man is worthy of me?" Realizing her slip, she tries to change the topic. "Why did you give me the hotel all of a sudden?" Before King Huai can respond, his assistant, Qiao Yan, jumps in. "A few years ago, when you were drunk, you told Third Master to give you the world's largest hotel. He took it seriously and traveled abroad to find the best designers for it." Wanchu's eyes widen as she stammers, "I didn't mean it. I was just joking." But King Huai remains calm. "Choo-choo," he says with a smile, "whatever you want, I'll give it to you. You deserve the best." That night, while Wanchu sleeps peacefully, King Huai quietly checks in on her, watching over her with a soft, protective gaze. The next day, in class with Jiangmen, Wanchu overhears her classmates gossiping. "Senior Shu is going to confess to Wanchu tonight," someone says. "She's just an ordinary girl. If he succeeds, it's like a Cinderella story." Wanchu dismisses the chatter, but Jiangman bristles with anger. Changing the subject, Jiangman gleefully shares, "Dong Siyu's father sent her abroad. Good riddance." Suddenly, Wanchu clutches her stomach in pain, her face turning pale. Within moments, she collapses. In no time, the third master arrives, his concern palpable. "Why are you so careless about your health?" he scolds gently. He hands her a glass of juice, urging her to drink. Before they can talk further, a knock interrupts them. It's Senior Shu, holding porridge and brown sugar. Without a word, King Huai locks the door. He turns to Wanchu, gently laying her back on the bed. "Is that the senior who keeps pestering you?" he asks. Embarrassed, Wanchu nods and assures him she isn't interested. King Huai's possessive streak flares. "Choose him or me," he demands. Wanchu blurts out, "Of course, I choose you." With that, King Huai leans in close, his lips brushing her neck. "Don't move," he whispers. "We're just acting." But when he kisses her lips, Wanchu's mind races. This doesn't feel like acting. Just then, Senior Shu bursts through the door, only to see the two locked in a kiss. He storms out, humiliated. King Huai smirks. "He won't bother you anymore," he says coolly. Flustered, Wanchu bolts from the room, her face burning with embarrassment. As King Huai leaves the room, Wanchu remains frozen, her heart pounding. Was he acting, or does he actually like me? She mutters to herself. The questions swirl in her mind all day, distracting her even in class. Meanwhile, King Huai sits in his office, deep in thought. Did I scare her, he wonders, regretting his impulsiveness. I need to be more careful. That evening, Jiangman excitedly tells Wanchu that Yi Group has moved its headquarters to Jiangqing. Which Yi Group? Wanchu asks, raising an eyebrow. Jiangman shows her a news clip of the chairman, a familiar face. "It's your uncle and aunt," Jiangman says. In the video, her uncle denies all allegations of wrongdoing and even claims, "We've always cared for my brother's daughter," giving her shares in the company. Wanchu's stomach churns as painful memories of their betrayal flood back. She quietly excuses herself, her mood darkened. Later that night, Aunt Chen informs King Huai that Wanchu seems upset. Concerned, he checks on her. She's lying in bed, half asleep. King Huai sits beside her, softly whispering, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." As he gets up to leave, Wanchu instinctively grabs his arm. Don't go, she murmurs. King Kwai stays, lying beside her and holding her close as she drifts into a peaceful sleep. The next day, Jiangman convinces Wanchu to help her shop for a bridesmaid dress for her cousin's wedding. At the boutique, while Jiangman picks out dresses, Wanchu unexpectedly runs into her cousin Ye and Ye's fiancé, Zai, Wanchu's former fiancé. A brief argument ensues before Zai excuses himself to browse the store. As Jiangman finds her dress, Wanchu promises to buy it for her. A judgmental salesgirl sneers, "Are you sure you can afford it?" Without hesitation, Wanchu hands over her credit card. When the payment goes through, the salesgirl's smug expression vanishes. As Wanchu and Jiangman prepare to leave, Yi intercepts them, inviting Wanchu to her and Zi's engagement party. "I'll pass," Wanchu says curtly, knowing Yi's intent is to hurt her. Annoyed, Yi concocts a scheme. Pretending to trip, she falls dramatically as Zi approaches. "Wanchu pushed me," she cries out, causing heads to turn. Zi storms forward angrily, ready to lash out at Wanchu, but she swiftly steps aside, causing him to stumble and nearly fall. "What's going on here?" the boutique manager demands, stepping into the commotion. The staff girl eagerly chimes in, "Miss Yi, Wanchu pushed Miss Yi, and now she's making excuses." The manager frowns but remains calm. "Did anyone witness this?" she asks. The staff girl hesitates, admitting no one saw it happen. Smiling confidently, Yi adds, "You won't find anything on the store cameras, it's a blind spot." But Wanchu doesn't flinch. With a knowing look, she says, "Perhaps the hidden camera under the display dummy caught it. Shall we check?" That the manager reviews the footage, and to everyone's surprise, the recording shows Yi tripping on her own and blaming Wanchu. Embarrassed, Yi pales as Wanchu steps closer. "I could release this footage," Wanchu says softly, her tone sharper than her words. "The world would see how the Yi family's daughter creates drama. And Zia, there's footage of you trying to hit me. Imagine what that would do to your reputation." Zia and Yi retreat without another word, their humiliation palpable. The manager quickly apologizes to Wanchu, promising to fire the staff member who had wrongly accused her. Later, Wanchu and Jiangmin relax at a nearby restaurant, chatting over drinks. Wanchu shares stories about King Kwai, her voice softening when she talks about his protectiveness. But as the night wears on, Wanchu drinks too much, her cheerful demeanor giving way to tears. She recalls the cruelty of her aunt and the loss of her parents, her sadness overwhelming her. Standing alone on the street, Wanchu begins to cry, but King Kwai appears just in time. Without a word, he wraps her in a warm embrace. "Don't cry," he murmurs. "Let me take you somewhere." He leads her to a quiet hill where, with perfect timing, fireworks light up the night sky. The brilliant colors reflect in Wanchu's teary eyes, and for the first time that evening she smiles. "Thank you, third master," she whispers, her heart lighter as King Kwai stands beside her, the glow of the fireworks illuminating their bond. At the hilltop, with the fireworks painting the night sky, King Kwai holds Wanchu's hand firmly. "I want you to always be safe and happy," he says, his voice soft but resolute. "Don't ever show me that sad expression again." Seeing her still a little lost in thought, he adds, "Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Remember, you're not alone. I'll always be here for you." As the night deepens, King Kwai lifts Wanchu onto his shoulders and starts walking back to the car. "What if you get a girlfriend one day?" she asks teasingly, trying to mask her embarrassment. "Will you treat her like this too?" King Kwai's reply is quiet but firm. "That's not going to happen," he says, his tone leaving no room for doubt. The next morning, on her way to school, Wanchu is stopped by Ziyi, who grabs her arm. "That stunt at the store," he accuses, "was all planned by you." Yi's innocent, his tone is full of arrogance. "You're just jealous of her because you like me, don't you? But I already have someone in my heart." Before Wanchu can respond, a sleek car drifts to a halt nearby. King Kwai steps out with an aura of authority, his eyes narrowing as he glares at Ziyi. "Why would she like you?" King Kwai says coldly. "You're not even close to her level. Stop embarrassing the Mu family." Shocked, Wanchu learns that Ziyi is also from the Mu family. But as she watches King Kwai defend her, she can't help but think, how could someone as amazing as Third Master be related to someone like Ziyi? Later that day, King Kwai holds a meeting with Ziyi and his father regarding a business collaboration. Ziyi, eager to prove himself, confidently starts his presentation. But instead of work-related slides, a compromising video of Ziyi and another woman plays on the screen. Mortified, Ziyi stammers, "This isn't mine. Someone's framing me." His father doesn't buy it. Furious, he slaps Ziyi across the face. "You've embarrassed the family," he snaps before storming out. On his way out of the building, Ziyi runs into Yi, who has already seen the video. In front of the gathered employees, she slaps him repeatedly, shouting accusations of betrayal. Humiliated, and with everyone recording the scene on their phones, Ziyi shoves Yi aside and flees. Meanwhile, Wanchu, hearing about the incident, can't help but laugh as she watches the video of Yi slapping Ziyi over and over. Sitting in King Kwai's office, she munches on a bag of chips, waiting for him to return. Third Master's timing is always perfect, she murmurs to herself with a smirk. As Wanchu waits in King Kwai's office, she quickly hides her chips and wipes her hands when she hears the door open. But it's too late. King Huai has already seen her snacking on the junk food he constantly tells her to avoid. Crossing his arms, he raises an eyebrow. Choo-choo, didn't I say no junk food? Caught, Wanchu pulls her coat tightly around her. I'm sorry, third master, she says sheepishly. But they're really good. Her playful attempt to appease him works, and King Huai shakes his head with a faint smile. To make amends, Wanchu picks up a chip and offers it to him. Here, try one, she says, holding it up to his lips. He takes a bite, and she watches closely, amused when she notices his ears turning red. Unable to resist, she reaches out and pinches his ear lightly. Why are your ears so red, third master, she teases. King Huai grabs her hand to stop her. Choo-choo, he says, his voice low, don't pinch a man's ear like that, but Wanchu giggles and pinches again, enjoying his flustered reaction. He pulls her closer, narrowing his eyes. If you do that again, he trails off, leaving her to wonder what he might do. The unspoken tension between them lingers, leaving Wanchu both curious and embarrassed. Meanwhile, Yi is in tears, sobbing to her mother, Bai Qiu, about Zi's betrayal. Bai Qiu, however, is skeptical. Perhaps it's all a setup, she says, determined to shift the blame onto Wanchu. Wanchu doesn't want you and Zi to be happy. She's behind all this. Should I call off the engagement, Yi asks, her voice trembling. Bai Qiu shakes her head firmly. No, don't act on anger. You'll regret it inwardly. Bai Qiu devises a plan to retaliate against Wanchu. Later that night, Wanchu nervously tells Kun Huai about an invitation she received from her grandfather for a Yi family dinner. He rarely contacts me, she says, her suspicion evident. I think Bai Qiu might be behind this. King Huai frowns. You shouldn't go. I have to, Wanchu insists. But if you're worried, you can have the driver follow me. He leans closer, his expression softening. If anything happens, call me immediately, he says, his concern for her clear. Wanchu nods, grateful for his protectiveness, but a nagging feeling tells her that the upcoming dinner will be anything but ordinary. As Wanchu steps into the hotel, she is immediately met with her grandfather's disapproval. You're late, he scolds, his voice stern. Glancing around, Wanchu notices not only her family but also a stranger, a middle-aged man introduced as Mr. Wang. Suspicion prickles in her mind as the atmosphere feels heavy with ulterior motives. Bai Qiu quickly takes the lead, explaining that Mr. Wang is here to meet Wanchu. He's wealthy, single, and would be a perfect match for you, Bai Qiu says with a manipulative smile. Wanchu's eyes narrow as she replies sarcastically, maybe he's here because Yi called off her engagement with Zi and plans to marry him instead. The remark infuriates Yi, who snaps, Zi and I are doing fine. Bai Qiu, undeterred, insists that Mr. Wang is interested in Wanchu and that marrying him would guarantee her a life of luxury. Think of it as securing your future, Yi adds, feigning concern. Wanchu scoffs and quips, if he's such a great match, why doesn't Aunt Bai or Yi marry him instead? Her grandfather quickly apologizes to Mr. Wang for Wanchu's boldness, but Mr. Wang dismisses it with a lecherous smile. Young girls can be impolite, he says, his tone dripping with condescension. Wanchu cedes as her family tries to diminish her worth, comparing her lack of luxuries to Mr. Wang's opulent lifestyle. When Mr. Wang shows off his bracelet worth 5 million, Wanchu smirks and calls over a waiter. She reveals her silver necklace, worth over 100 million. Gasps fill the room as she remarks casually, I already have a bracelet like yours. I gave it to my maid. The blatant insult sends Mr. Wang storming away from the table, his face red with anger. Outside, Bai Qiu and Yi rush to soothe Mr. Wang's bruised ego. Bai Qiu assures him that Wanchu's behavior is just a facade. It'll be exciting to tame her, Bai Qiu says, fueling his twisted desire. Mr. Wang smirks and agrees. Bring her to my room, he orders, as the sinister plan unfolds. Bai Qiu and Yi plot to drug Wanchu, intending to drag her to Mr. Wang's room and stage a compromising situation. Their goal is clear: humiliate Wanchu and force her into marriage. Little do they know, Wanchu's wit and resilience are far beyond their schemes. Yi, carrying the drugged tea, makes her way toward Wanchu's room, confident in their plan. But just as she approaches, a sharp blow lands on the back of her head. Yi collapses. In Mr. Wang's room, he eagerly approaches the figure lying under the blanket, convinced it's Wanchu. He begins to act on his vile intentions, but as the figure stirs, it's not Wanchu who wakes, it's Yi. Her horrified scream pierces the room and Mr. Wang stumbles back in shock. Why are you here? He stammers, covering himself in panic. At that moment, Bai Qiu bursts into the room, expecting to catch Wanchu in the act. Instead, she finds her daughter tangled in the embarrassing scene. Furious and confused, Bai Qiu tries to shield Yi, but the damage is done. Mr. Wang, humiliated, tries to explain, I was told Wanchu would be here. Before they can argue further, Mu Zi arrives, his face dark with anger. Seeing Yi and Mr. Wang together, he explodes. So this is what you've been up to behind my back, he shouts. If Third Master hadn't tipped me off, I wouldn't have seen this disgusting display. Zi slaps Yi, storms out, and leaves her sobbing. Outside the room, Wanchu appears, calm and composed. Bai Qiu, enraged, points a finger at her. "This is all you're doing," she accuses. But Wanchu, with a mocking smile, replies, "You planned the drugging and brought Mr. Wang here. If anyone's to blame, it's you." Left speechless, Bai Qiu can only glare as Wanchu walks away. On the way home, Wanchu scrolls through her phone, admiring a picture of a handsome young singer sent by Jiangman. King Huai notices her smiling and snatches the phone. "Who's this?" he demands. Wanchu replies nonchalantly, "Just a singer." "Isn't he handsome?" King Huai frowns. "You've never called me handsome." Realizing his jealousy, Wanchu quickly adds, "You're mature and steady handsome." He's just youthful and handsome, but King Huai doesn't seem convinced. With a click, he deletes the picture from her phone, muttering, "You don't need to look at anyone else." Wanchu stares at him in disbelief as he drives on, a satisfied smirk on his face. At the dining table, Wanchu remains unusually quiet, avoiding King Huai's gaze. She assumes his earlier behavior was due to exhaustion from work, and she doesn't want to upset him further. Even when King Huai takes her glass of water mid-sip, she stays silent, making him even more irritable. Frustrated, King Huai leaves the room and heads out to meet his friend. Over tea, King Huai confides in his friend, saying, "There's this girl I like, and I'm sure she likes me too. She even sent me heart emojis with a proud smile." He shows the messages on his phone. His friend bursts out laughing. "Those are just modern ways of texting," he explains. "It doesn't mean love." King Huai frowns, feeling both embarrassed and clueless about modern communication. Later that night, King Huai finds himself standing by Wanchu's bed as she sleeps peacefully. His emotions are conflicted, and he whispers softly, "It's normal for someone your age to like young guys. I'm just a decade older," imagining things. Unable to resist, he leans down and kisses her gently on the lips. But then, Wanchu stirs and wakes up, her wide eyes meeting his. Panicking, King Huai stumbles back, pretending to be drunk. "I'm scared of thunder," he mumbles, looking pitiful. "Can I stay here though skeptical?" Wanchu eventually agrees, seeing how vulnerable he seems. She lets him sleep on the bed while she cautiously stays on her side. The next morning, at breakfast, Wanchu watches King Huai suspiciously. "So why are you suddenly afraid of thunder?" she asks, raising an eyebrow. King Huai freezes for a second but quickly recovers. "It happens sometimes," he says nonchalantly. "But if it does again, I'll just come to you for comfort, like last night." Wanchu blinks, trying to decipher his words, while King Huai hides a smirk behind his cup of tea. Clearly he's enjoying her confusion, and Wanchu can't help but wonder if his fear of thunder was just another one of his schemes. Later that day, on her way to visit Jiangman, Wanchu encounters a group of men blocking her path. Their intentions are anything but friendly. As they advance, Wanchu's fighting instincts kick in. Despite being outnumbered, she uses her incredible skills to take them down one by one. The gang leader, bruised and defeated, admits, "The Yi family sent us." Satisfied with her victory, Wanchu watches them retreat, though a small scratch on her hand remains as a reminder. That evening, while they eat dinner together, Wanchu casually mentions her new idea. "I was thinking of getting you a doll," she says, smirking. "You know, so you can hug it when you're scared at night." King Huai raises an eyebrow, clearly not amused. "Dolls are useless," he replies slyly. "If I need comfort, I'd rather hug you instead." Wanchu chokes on her water, flustered by his boldness. Later that night, King Huai takes her words to heart and shows up in her room. "What are you doing here?" Wanchu asks, bewildered. "You said if I was scared I could find you," he reminds her smugly. Though reluctant, Wanchu eventually agrees, patting his back awkwardly as he pretends to settle in. Despite her initial nervousness, she falls asleep first. King Huai quietly adjusts her comforter and pillow, muttering softly, "Who's supposed to be taking care of who?" The next morning, King Huai wakes up before her and notices the small bruise on her hand. When Wanchu stirs awake, he points at it, his tone serious. "What happened here?" Wanchu tries to brush it off, but eventually confesses about the gang encounter and how the Yi family was behind it. King Huai's expression darkens. "You should have told me," he says firmly. Determined to protect her, he then later orders his team to blacklist the Yi family, ensuring no future business dealings with them. Determined to keep her attention, he purposefully nicks his finger while cutting an orange. "Ah," he exclaims, clutching his hand. Wanchu's head snaps up and she rushes to him. "What happened?" she asks, her voice laced with concern. She retrieves the first aid kit and sits beside him. "This might sting a little," she warns, carefully cleaning the wound with a cotton swab. King Huai, watching her focused expression, feels his heart soften even more. As she wraps his finger with a fresh bandage, her gentle touch sends his thoughts spinning, deepening his affection for her. After the bandaging, King Huai starts scheming again. "I haven't showered yet," he mentions casually, glancing at her. Wanchu, oblivious to his intentions, sets up his bath. But just as she thinks her task is done, King Huai looks at her with a smirk. "Can you help unbutton my shirt?" he asks, his tone teasing. Wanchu's face flushes. What she stammers, but King Huai doesn't back down. Reluctantly, Wanchu starts unbuttoning his shirt, her hands trembling. Suddenly, she slips, and King Huai instinctively catches her. Their faces are inches apart, and before either can react, their lips meet in an accidental kiss. Flustered, Wanchu jumps back, ready to bolt from the room. Wait, King Huai says, holding up his hand. The bandage is wet begrudgingly. Wanchu rewraps his finger, avoiding his gaze. Later, King Huai visits his friend, seeking advice. How do I win her heart, he asks, his tone unusually earnest. His friend suggests romantic gestures, knitting a sweater, writing a love letter, or cooking for her. Inspired, King Huai decides to take a day off to knit. As he struggles with the knitting needles, assistant Qiao Yan enters, eyeing him suspiciously. Third master, who are you knitting for, he asks. King Huai, not one to reveal much, smirks. Someone special, he replies. When Qiao Yan teases him about being single, King Huai shoots back, maybe you should worry about your own love life before judging me. Just as Wanchu steps into the study room, King Huai quickly hides the tangled mess of his failed knitting attempt behind his desk. To cover up, he strides toward her and pulls her into a sudden hug. I feel so lost today, he murmurs, acting heartbroken. Wanchu blinks in confusion, patting his back awkwardly. Are you okay, third master? Later, King Huai pulls Aunt Chen aside, instructing her, don't tell Wanchu I was knitting for her. Aunt Chen smiles knowingly. Missy must be the luckiest person alive, she mutters under her breath, watching King Huai's attempts to hide his feelings. The next morning, Wanchu receives a mysterious parcel. Curiously, she opens it, revealing a sleek black nightdress. Her face turns red with embarrassment. At that exact moment, King Huai walks towards her. His eyes land on the garment in her hands. Did you buy this, he asks suspiciously, raising an eyebrow. Wanchu panics, her face turning crimson. No, I didn't. She stammers before fleeing to her room, clutching the parcel. Once safely inside, Wanchu dials Jiang Man without hesitation. What were you thinking sending me this, she hisses, her voice a mix of embarrassment and frustration. Jiang Man laughs, completely unfazed. It's not a prank. It's a gift to help you take things to the next level with Third Master. Trust me, it's time to be bold. What do you mean, bold? Wanchu demands, still mortified. Jiang Man sighs as if explaining something obvious. If you really want to date Third Master, you need to step up your game. Don't be so shy. Tonight could be unforgettable. Wanchu groans, burying her face in her hands. Jiang Man, you're impossible, she protests, but her friend only laughs harder. Meanwhile, King Huai, standing outside her door, wonders why Wanchu is so flustered. When Wanchu moves to leave the room, King Huai grabs her wrist gently. She freezes, embarrassed, and tries to shake free. Don't. Third Master, she stammers, avoiding his gaze. King Huai tilts his head, his voice teasing. Don't what, Choo-Choo? Life is short. Shouldn't we? He leans closer, brushing his lips against her neck. Wanchu's eyes widen in shock, and in a burst of panic, she pushes him out of the room. Leave, she yells, slamming the door shut. King Huai chuckles softly outside, amused by her reaction. Inside, Wanchu sits on the bed, her face burning. What just happened, she mutters, replaying the scene in her head. She clutches her pillow, convinced that King Huai misunderstood everything. Why is everything so embarrassing with him? She groans, burying her face. The next morning, Wanchu finds herself waking King Huai up. He stirs, his face flushed, and acts as though he's unwell. You have a fever, she asks, leaning closer in concern. Before she can check further, King Huai pulls back, covering his nose. Don't come closer, he says quickly. Confused, Wanchu notices his nose bleeding. We're going to the hospital, she insists. Later, as the doctor leaves, Wanchu corners assistant Qiao for answers. Is it serious, she asks worriedly. Qiao Yan hesitates, then clears his throat awkwardly. No, not serious. Just, strong desires early in the morning. Wanchu blinks, not understanding, but Qiao Yan avoids further explanation. That evening, Jiang Man calls, her tone playful. How did my gift work out, she asks. Wanchu, annoyed, replies. Never send me anything like that again. She throws the nightdress in the trash and sighs. Jiang Man, undeterred, changes the subject. Meet me tonight. I have a surprise for you. Wanchu hesitates but agrees, still too distracted by the day's chaos to argue. Wanchu wavers as she stands at the entrance of the bar, the lively music and chatter overwhelming her. Jiang Man, are you sure about this place? She whispers nervously. The thought of the Third Master finding out sends a chill down her spine. Jiang Man waves her off, grinning. Don't worry, live a little, Wanchu. Let's just enjoy the night. Inside, the spotlight falls on a handsome young singer on stage. His soulful voice captivates the crowd, but Wanchu feels uneasy. Something about the situation doesn't sit right with her. She fidgets in her seat, hoping the night will end without incident. Back at home, King Huai returns from work, expecting to find Wanchu. When Aunt Chen informs him that she's gone out and will be late, he stiffens. Gone out? Where, he asks, his tone sharp. Aunt Chen shrugs, but King Huai's suspicion grows. His mind flashes to the parcel he saw earlier. Without wasting a moment, he orders his guards find out where she is. Minutes later, his guard reports Miss Yi is at a bar. King Huai's expression darkens. A bar, he mutters, already grabbing his coat. Determined to bring her back, he heads out. Meanwhile, at the bar, an announcement is made. Patrons can throw flowers at someone who moves them, inviting them to spend the night together. The crowd erupts with cheers, and a girl shyly tosses her flower at the lead singer. He politely declines, his eyes scanning the room. "I already have someone in mind," he says, his voice confident. The singer steps off the stage, flower in hand, and walks directly to Wanchu. He stops in front of her, his smile charming. "Take me home with you tonight," he says, holding the flower out to her. The crowd cheers loudly, urging her to accept. Wanchu freezes, her cheeks flushing as all eyes turn to her. She wants to protest, but her voice catches in her throat. As the singer leans closer, her heart races. Just as the singer tightens his grip on Wanchu's hand, a commanding voice slices through the noise. "Let her go," Qing Huai says, stepping into the bar with his guards. His expression is thunderous, and the room goes silent. The singer, undeterred, asks smugly, "Who are you? Can't you see you're scaring her?" Before Wanchu can react, Qing Huai signals his guards. They grab the singer and drag him out of the bar without hesitation. Qing Huai doesn't even glance at the crowd as he strides to Wanchu, who stands frozen. Without a word, he throws her over his shoulder like she weighs nothing, ignoring her embarrassed protests, and marches out of the bar. Back at the mansion, the staff whispers nervously, assuming Qing Huai will punish Wanchu. But instead, he carries her straight to her room and sets her down. "Explain," he says, his voice cold and controlled. Wanchu hesitates, her nerves getting the better of her. Qing Huai, clearly trying to calm his anger, pours himself a glass of alcohol and downs it. But as he drinks, his self-restraint begins to slip. Tossing his coat aside, he unbuttons the top of his shirt, revealing his toned chest. He grabs Wanchu's hand and places it against him. "Do I look good to you?" he asks, his voice low and rough. Before she can pull away, he ties her hands with his neckerchief, raising them above her head. Wanchu panics. "Third master, stop. Don't do this," she pleads, her voice trembling. He leans closer, his breath warm against her neck. "If you don't like thrills, why do you go to places like that?" he demands, his frustration evident. Qing Huai's anger turns into a heated kiss, his lips trailing from hers to her neck. Wanchu cries out, "I'm scared." "Please, stop." Her words seem to pierce through his haze. He abruptly stops and takes a step back, breathing heavily. "I'm sorry," he mutters, his voice thick with regret. "I drank too much." Wanchu nods, though her fear lingers. "It's okay," she says softly, but her shaken expression speaks volumes. Qing Huai clenches his fists, silently cursing himself for losing control. For the next few days, Qing Huai keeps a low profile, his guilt over that night evident. But his longing for Wanchu grows stronger. One evening, he deliberately takes a cold shower to give himself a fever, hoping it will bring her closer. When Wanchu hears that Qing Huai has fallen ill, she rushes to his room. He looks pale and weak, leaning against the wall. As soon as she enters, he reaches for her, resting his head on her shoulder. "Chuchu," he murmurs, his voice heavy with emotion. "Do you not like me anymore? Have you abandoned me?" Startled, Wanchu shakes her head. "Not at all. If I didn't care about you, why would I rush over here?" she says softly, her concern evident. Her words seem to comfort him, and he smiles faintly. "Promise me," he says, looking into her eyes, "that you won't get close to any other man." Wanchu hesitates but eventually nods. "I promise," she whispers. That night, Qing Huai insists she stays by his side. Too worried to refuse, Wanchu agrees, and they sleep next to each other. By morning, however, Qing Huai wakes up alone. Panic sets in until he hears noises coming from the kitchen. Rushing downstairs, he finds Wanchu carefully preparing breakfast. She looks up, surprised by his sudden appearance. "What are you doing out of bed? You're supposed to be resting," she scolds, but Qing Huai just smiles and sits at the table. As she serves the food, Qing Huai reaches for her plate instead. "Hey, that's mine," Wanchu protests, but he quickly grabs it and starts eating. "If you made it, it's bound to taste better," he teases. Annoyed but secretly pleased, Wanchu rolls her eyes and sits down. Halfway through the meal, Qing Huai picks up a cherry and offers it to Wanchu. She hesitates before taking it into her mouth. Before she can fully eat it, Qing Huai leans forward and bites the other half of the cherry from her lips, their mouths brushing in a sweet, unexpected kiss. Wanchu freezes, her face turning bright red. Qing Huai smirks, leaning back in his chair. "Sweet, isn't it?" he says casually, leaving Wanchu flustered and speechless. As the sweet moment lingers in the air, Wanchu's phone buzzes. Seeing Yi Yi's name on the screen, she sighs but picks up. "What do you want?" Wanchu asks, her tone curt. Yi's voice comes through sharp and accusatory. "Why is Mu Corporation and every other company cutting ties with Yi Group? This is your doing, isn't it?" Before Wanchu can respond, Bai Qiu's voice replaces Yi's on the call. "Let's meet in person," her aunt says smoothly, her words laced with manipulation. "We need to talk this through." Wanchu hesitates but agrees, suspecting her aunt has ulterior motives. Later that day, Wanchu meets Bai Qiu at a cafe. The older woman wastes no time, feigning a concerned tone. "Wanchu, Yi Corporation was founded by your parents. Why is Qing Huai trying to destroy it? Don't you care about their legacy?" Wanchu's expression hardens, her voice calm but firm. "Don't act like you care about my parents' legacy. You're the one who stole it from me." Seeing that Wanchu isn't swayed, Bai Qiu's tone turns cold. If you don't fix this, you'll regret it, she threatens. Wanchu stands abruptly, her resolve unshaken. I promise you, she says, her voice steady. I'll take back everything you took from me. Without another word, she walks away, leaving Bai Qiyu seething with anger. That evening, back at the mansion, King Huai is lounging on the couch with his shirt partially unbuttoned, sipping juice like a mischievous child. When Wanchu enters, she raises an eyebrow. Why are you dressed like that? She asks, her tone half scolding. King Huai smirks. If it bothers you so much, why don't you button it up yourself? He leans back, clearly enjoying the moment. Wanchu hesitates but reluctantly steps forward. As she begins buttoning his shirt, King Huai leans closer, teasing her by blowing gently on her hair. Flustered, she swats his hand playfully. In her distraction, his juice spills onto his shirt. Now look what you've done, King Huai says, his mock annoyance is evident. Wanchu quickly stands, embarrassed. I'll get you a new shirt, she mutters, turning to leave. Before she can take a step, King Huai grabs her wrist and pulls her back abruptly. The sudden motion causes her to lose her balance, and she falls against him. Their faces are inches apart before their lips accidentally meet. Time seems to freeze as their eyes lock, and neither pulls away. King Huai cups her face gently, his voice low. Wanchu, you mean everything to me. Stay by my side and let's live a happy life together. Wanchu's heart pounds as she nods slightly, leaning into him. Their kiss deepens, filled with emotion and unspoken promises. The world outside fades away, leaving only the warmth they share. That night, they let their guards down completely. For the first time, they sleep side by side without any excuse, their hearts finally aligned. Wanchu feels safe and cherished, while King Huai silently vows to protect her no matter what. As the moonlight filters through the curtains, they hold each other close, their bond unbreakable. The next morning, the warmth of the previous night still lingers as Wanchu prepares herself to face her family once again. Meanwhile, Aunt Bai Qiyu and her grandfather arrive at the mansion, their demeanor cold and calculating. King Huai greets them in the drawing room, his expression unreadable. Before Wanchu joins, Bai Qiyu attempts to manipulate King Huai, her voice dripping with false sincerity. Third Master, we should put all this behind us. End these disputes and move forward, she suggests, trying to sound reasonable. When King Huai remains silent, her tone sharpens. You know, you're not even related to Wanchu by blood. Why go to such lengths for her? King Huai's calm expression hardens. He stands, looking her directly in the eye. Because I love her, he states firmly. And that's all the reason I need. At the door, Wanchu pauses, having overheard his words. Her heart swells with emotion. She hadn't realized the depth of King Huai's feelings until this moment. Stepping into the room, Wanchu takes control of the situation. Grandpa, she begins, her voice steady. There's something you need to know. She pulls out her phone and plays a voice recording of Bai Qiyu confessing to the murder of Wanchu's parents and her theft of the Yi family property. The room falls silent as the damning evidence echoes through the space. Her grandfather's face pales. Is this true? He demands, his voice trembling. Before Bai Qiyu can defend herself, he slaps her hard across the face. Furious and desperate, Bai Qiyu grabs a knife from the table and lunges at Wanchu. King Huai reacts instantly, pulling Wanchu behind him and shielding her with his body. The blade grazes his arm, but he doesn't flinch. His protective stance only strengthens Wanchu's resolve. Take her away, King Huai orders his guards, his voice cold. And deliver this voice recording to the police. The guards drag Bai Qiyu out, kicking and screaming. He then turns to Wanchu's grandfather. You're no longer welcome here. Leave now. As her grandfather stumbles out, Wanchu looks at King Huai, her eyes glistening. Thank you, she whispers, her voice full of gratitude. King Huai simply pulls her into a reassuring embrace, silently promising to stand by her side, no matter the cost. King Huai holds Wanchu tightly, his heart heavy with the events that just unfolded. He strokes her hair gently, whispering, "You're safe now. No one will hurt you again." Wanchu pulls away slightly, her cheeks flushed. Third Master, she begins, her voice soft. Thank you for always protecting me. She hesitates for a moment before adding, "Close your eyes." Confused but curious, King Huai obeys, his eyes shut, and he feels Wanchu lean closer. Suddenly, her lips brushed against his in a delicate kiss. The touch is brief but full of warmth and sincerity. Before he can react, Wanchu pulls back, her face red with embarrassment. That night, when you were drunk, she stammers, we kissed, but it wasn't an accident. I wanted to. Her confession is barely above a whisper, and before King Huai can respond, she turns and runs away from there. King Huai stands frozen, his mind replaying her words. Slowly, a memory surfaces. He recalls faint flashes of that night, the softness of her lips, the warmth of her touch. Realization dawns and a smile spreads across his face. So, it was her, he murmurs to himself. Determined not to let her run away, King Huai dashes after Wanchu. He finds her in the hallway, pacing nervously. Without a word, he strides toward her and takes her hand, stopping her in her tracks. Wanchu looks up at him, startled. You kissed me back then, and now you've kissed me again, he says, his tone teasing yet sincere. Does this mean I can't let you go anymore? Wanchu bites her lip, too shy to respond. King Huai chuckles, pulling her into a tight embrace. You don't need to run, Choo-Choo. "I've loved you all along." His words make her heart race, and as she hides her face against his chest, she knows there's nowhere else she'd rather be.